We are in the village of Usha, where about 1800 years ago, 5 rabbinical students arrived to this small village, try to keep their heads down, to remain anonymous. They're trying to escape the terrible devastation of the Bar Kochba Rebellion, where the Romans devastated the Jewish community in this land, killing 500,000 Jews, hundreds of villages destroyed, most of the rabbinical leaders, most of the big teachers and sages tortured and then killed. These 5 rabbinical students arrive here, and they sit here and they decide that they are going to save the Jewish people. The Jewish community in the land of Israel is almost completely devastated. So these students sit here and they write what we today call the Usha enactments. And they start writing, how are you to behave as a Jewish person? Because most of the Jews that are left are either leaving the land of Israel, abandoning their families. There's famine, hunger, devastation, poverty. People just are completely devastated after this rebellion. And what these people do is they sit down and they start writing rules. Number 1, about the family. You are obligated to support your children. You are obligated to support your elderly parents. That's an obligation as a Jew. Not only that, but you are obligated to support yourself. You have to go out and find work. You cannot depend on others if you don't have to. Okay, and rules for the community. The rule is the community must have a soup kitchen. They must have support for those who have fallen on the luck. Okay, so the community must support each other. And another one, living in the land of Israel is more important than any other obligation in the books. Okay, all of these rules and regulations are started to be written right here in Usha in the year 135. Usha becomes the very first place where the Sanhedrin meets, the community of rabbis that come here, and they stay here for a few years, and from here they move on to Shfar'am and Bet Shearim and Tzipori, and eventually to Tiberias, where in the year 429 they get dissolved by the Byzantine Empire. But during those 300 years, when the Sanhedrin was here in the Lower Galilee, they wrote some of the most important sacred texts of the Jewish people, the Mishnah and the Talmud. In 2017, a special project was begun here, the Sanhedrin Trail, a 5-day, 70-kilometer trail that starts in this area and goes all along the hills of the Lower Galilee, ending up in Tiberias, following the stations of the Sanhedrin from 135 to the year 425. Let's go meet the archaeologist who took on not only this project, but also the excavations of this beautiful little archaeological site. This is Yair Amitzur, and he's an archaeologist with the Antiquities Authority, and it was his idea to create the Sanhedrin Trail. And you are the one that convinced the Antiquities Authority that they should find the funding in order to excavate in this place, because this is really the beginning of the Sanhedrin Trail, right?
Right.
And will you show us on a map what it looks like?
Yeah, let's see.
Okay, Yair, can you show us where we are? We are in Usha, and Usha was the very first stop of the Sanhedrin from the year 135, right? From the year 135. And from Usha, where did they go? They went to Shfar'am, and then Bet Shearim, and then Tzipori, and they ended up, and the whole era, the era of the Mishnah and Talmud, ends in the year 429 when the Sanhedrin dissolves and finishes its work in Tiberias, okay? And tell me, show me the Sanhedrin Trail. Where will it begin? It begins in Bet Shearim, and this is the first section goes to Usha, and then to Shfar'am and up to Yodfat, and then comes down to Tzipori, right? And then from there, it goes to Tiberias. It is divided into 5 sections, and it is how many kilometers long? 70, right? 70 kilometers long, because you wanted it to be 70 kilometers long to honor the 70 rabbis of the Sanhedrin, and the 70th anniversary of the independence of Israel, right? 70 years of independence, 70 kilometers, 70 rabbis. Wow, what an amazing, amazing trail. It will take 5 days to walk, and it's gorgeous. The Lower Galilee is where you're supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So here we are at the very top of the hill in Usha, the ancient village of Usha. We've got the young folks excavating to find more. And this is the main street, you guys, the main street. We've got a very large building on the right and obviously a very large building to the left. Let's go into this building on the left. Here we are. I'm allowing you inside. Most people are not allowed to come in here. Look what we have. Beautiful, beautiful olive press. We're going to walk in. This is a threshold. This is the entrance. Let's walk in to the olive press. The first thing you will see is that on this side, we've got 2 storage areas for olives. You come in, you put all the olives here. When there are enough olives, you bring it to the basin where the olives are crushed, and you've got the great, great grinding stone. After the grinding stone, they take the big pulp, all the mush of ground up olives. They stick beams in the ground, they smush it, and the olive oil gets driven right in here into this gorgeous little plastered basin, and this is where they kept the olive oil. Right next door to the olive press is this area. Let's walk in over the threshold, and we're walking into the storage area of the olive oil jars. They're stored in this room. This room has a nice floor to it, a nice mosaic. Why? Because if one of these jars, in case it falls on the ground and shatters and all of the olive oil spills out, you don't want to waste any of it, so it flows right here into this basin and it is preserved. There's a wall dividing the olive press from this olive storage area, and this, you guys, is an amazing, beautiful, beautiful olive press compound that was found in Usha. The most significant find in this olive press compound is not actually the olive press itself, but right here next to it is a mikveh. It is a mikveh, a ritual bath where those workers who made the olive oil had to submerge, they had to immerse themselves every morning before they went to work, because the olive oil prepared here was obviously olive oil good enough for Jewish ritual, good enough for the temple, good enough for the rabbis that lived, the sages that lived up here. And it's all connected, purity and the creation of food and olive oil is all connected. Continuing this walk down Main Street in ancient 1800-year-old Usha is this place right over here. We are going to cross the threshold into this compound. We've come from the olive oil press, and now we're going into a wine press. Look at this beautiful place. This is a large, large compound for preparing wine. Right over here, this is where they smushed the grapes, smushed the grapes. The grapes are smushed over here. This is a large hole where they put a big beam that went around and crushed the grapes into a pulp. The juice from the grapes flowed into this direction right over here. Look at that. You see the little canal? The canal goes right there into 2 beautiful containers, beautiful, beautiful containers with stairs where you can go down and collect the juice and eventually put it into jars, and it will create wine. This is a large grape press, wine press. This is right next door to the olive press, making this the industrial section of Usha. And again, the most significant find next to the wine press is not the place where they smush the grapes, but right next to it, what do you think that we find? We have discovered a ritual bath a mikveh. Do you see it? It's a very small place where the workers, before they went and touched the grapes, they had to immerse themselves in order to become cleansed and purified so they continue the work of making the wine. Because olive oil and wine were the two elements needed for Jewish ritual, and they had to be pure. When I say that the finding of the mikvehs next to the olive press and the wine press, those are the most important and significant finds here in Usha, what do I mean? What I mean is that during Second Temple times, from those times, we have found mikvehs close to food production areas, but we have never found mikvehs, purity, ritual purity baths, next to food production areas from the Sanhedrin times, from the times between 135 and 429. Finding them here in Usha shows us that this was a very, very sacred and holy place where very religious people lived, obviously the Sanhedrin that I told you about, and this shows that they used ritual practices, they used purity ritual practices in their daily life. Otherwise, they would need mikvehs so close to food production areas. This is a very symbolic find. It shows that the Sanhedrin was here and they practiced very strict rituals, very strict purity rituals, which included immersing yourself in the mikveh before creating food, before writing text, before doing all kinds of things that required purity. Yair tells me that 10,000 students and gap year kids after high school have come here in the last 2 years to help excavate. And these young people are here today, and look what they found just this morning. Look at that beautiful piece of Roman glass, thank you. And all those finds in those buckets. Wow, this is amazing. These are all volunteers and they come here to work. Hey, come on over. What's your name?
Menachem.
Hey, Menachem, where are you from?
I'm from Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, that's awesome. What did you find?
It's a fragment of glass, Roman era.
A fragment, show me, a fragment of glass. Look at that beautiful piece of glass from Roman times.
There was a glassmaker who lived here.
There was a glassmaker who lived here. That's pretty cool. Thank you, Menachem. Good luck. Not only is it exciting to see the Roman period and then eventually the Byzantine period ruins, but if you look very closely right here, do you see this gray gravel? This is evidence of a big fire, big destruction, and they've dated it back to the 7th century when the Muslims arrived to the land. And this devastation is when Usha was destroyed and the Muslims took over. And from the middle of the 7th century to the middle of the 8th century to exactly the year 749, this community is under Muslim control. On January 18th of the year 749, a humongous earthquake hits this land. It destroys Tiberias, it destroys Tzfat, it destroys many, many cities and the village of Usha. Do you see this crack in the rock? This crack in the rock shows that the earth moved. The earth moved in Usha. Part of this hill dropped and there was big destruction. We can date this destruction to the year 749, where this part of the hill actually drops a few centimeters and the rest of the village drops down the hill. Now, what happens is that the people who live here after this earthquake decide it's not worth staying here. They were afraid it would happen again, and they abandon Usha. They abandon Usha, and from the year 749 until the year 1880, under the Ottoman Empire, this city, or not city, this village is uninhabited. I hope you liked your short virtual tour of Usha. If you are in Israel, you can put in Usha Ha'atika, ancient Usha, on Waze and come and visit us anytime. If you are not in Israel, you can contact me for another virtual tour, or you can wait till after the corona and visit us here in Israel. You are more than welcome. Bye.